everybody. Happy Tuesday and welcome back to Talk to Me Tuesday. It's Tajah, your host, the Mindset Coach. Tonight, we're talking all about parenting. Truth is, none of us really know what we're doing, right? And to prove that, I have two guests on here. I'm gonna let you introduce yourself. So Stephanie, tell them who you are.
Well, my name is Stephanie Jackson. I am a registered nurse, wife, mother of two. My daughter is 12, going on 13 this year, and my son is 4, going on 5 this year.
Okay. How about you, Robert?
Hi, my name is Robert, IT manager, husband. I have a son, 24 years old, as well as we have a 5-year-old grandson.
Right. So you guys, this is great because everybody is a little bit in the mix. I have a 9-year-old that's going on 10 and a 6-year-old that'll be 7 soon in the fall. And we all know when we say that they're really years ahead of that time, right? Because with technology and the school environment and everything else that they have access to that we may not have really had when we were coming up, takes a part in their growing, right? And who they're becoming and what they're seeing. So the truth is, like I said, none of us really know what we're doing as parents. We're just trying to make a way because you can get all the books, you can read all the articles, but guess what? Nothing is your child, your situation, your family. So you still have to make the things work. So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Because what I find is we either try to resemble exactly what we have or we try to get far, far away from it. So let's start with there about how was your childhood and how has it affected you and how you parent?
Stephanie, I'll let you go first.
Okay, thank you. So I am an 80s baby. I was born in 82. So with my family, I'm an only child. So with my parents, they were really big on family time. So we did a lot of, watching, if you guys remember TGIF, where the shows would come on Fridays, Family Matters, all those types of shows, basketball games with pizza. We really spent a lot of time together. We would take trips. My dad might say, get in the car, and wherever we ended up was wherever we ended up. Pack your bags, we're getting in the car and we're just going to drive and end up somewhere. So I really try to model my kids' experience like mine was. I find that sometimes it's difficult just because times are so different. People are busier, working, kids have way different distractions than we had. Technology is a big thing for me. I don't know how it was for you guys, but coming up, I didn't have iPad. Of course, it wasn't invented, but you didn't have those types of things to kind of take your time. I was outside playing with my friends or playing by myself. Mm-hmm. I do try to model their experience similar to mine.
Good points. And I think we can all relate to that, right? We all played outside. Nowadays, no. You play in the house and you'll play games, but with your friends via tablets or a gaming system, right? It's not a lot of interaction. And that's pre-pandemic, which is very interesting, right? Because you have to even think that companies, because of future thinking with technology, have provided ways for kids to still be connected in a sense without the physical contact. So what are you going to say, Robert?
Well, I'm a 70s baby. I'm 74, I think. And yeah, sometimes it's stuff me. But mine is a little different from 70s. We grew up poor, come from a family of 6 siblings, total of 9 in all. And the background that we were, introduced to, we took from our father. He introduced to us a work habit, to a point to where we were actually working all the time. And my mother was a faith-based person, to where all we did was work and go to church. So from that perspective, as a child, from that background, of course, not understanding exactly what's going on to that complete magnitude, as to, okay, why are we living like this? Why are we having to scuffle and struggle this way? As well as we're going to church Sunday through Sunday. So we had a combination to a point where we went to school and we had to hurry home and do our homework. And around 3:30, 4 o'clock, we had to wait for our father to come and pick us up because we cut grass. And that was how we kind of made ends meet. So as far as playing was very scarce to a point where because it was replaced with working, developing life skills, if you will, and providing. So then you have the combination of mom instilling the faith-based within us as well. So again, from that young age, you thought mom and dad was just mean, not knowing the overall complete circumstances of what was going on as to why we were doing the things that we were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's true too. And just like for me, I'm in the 80s lane as well, but the late one. So I'm in the 87 year, right? And I think because so I have 4 siblings. Well, it's 4 of us total, and I'm the baby. And I think because I fall so significantly far behind them, I'm 7 years behind my sister, and I think my mom was just able to realize what it was going to take to make me a little bit different, right? Because she was young. She was 18 years old when she had my brother. And then she had me. You get older, you get a little bit wiser, you get smarter with time. And because of that, my upbringing was structured, meaning I was always in a sport or some kind of activity. There wasn't much free time. And I think because of that, the way I raise my children, it makes everything different, right? You want them to be in sports, you want them to be in activities, and that's regardless if they're good or not. It's just about them finding their way as well. She didn't know what I would be good at or thrive at, but it was the sense of team building and those skills you need that you learn in school, but they're more, I think you get them more highlighted when you play sports or you're in an activity where you have to be on a team, and the communication level and just that nature of I think I will, I can try hard and I'm going to keep on going is what builds in a team, right? You get people around you that push you to become better. And then you get your challenge too, and you learn a different part of life as you grow older each year. So what I want to say is, now that you talked about how you were raised, how is it that you use those things to now parent your children?
Okay. Well, like for me, the part that I did leave out, of course, I didn't have siblings, but of course that means there was no shared responsibility. It was all on me. So dishes, cleaning, that was all me. So my parents also did instill, a work ethic. As soon as I hit 15 and could legally work, I had to get a job of some type. So definitely with my daughter entering the teenage phase, we are trying to, implement more chores. We use a calendar to try to keep her on track with doing those chores. And we try to explain to her, you've been very fortunate to have a lot of things that her dad and I did not have. Because he also came from more of a background of more working and, a little bit of playtime, but more working as well. Both his parents were ministers, so they were in church all the time. So we try to let her know that we are trying to give her life skills because, she's at that phase where, did you load the dishwasher? And you get kind of like the rolling of the eyes or like, oh, okay, I'll do it. But we just try to explain to her that, those are skills that you're going to need when you get on your own. So you need to learn how to do them now. So trying to model that, like I said, it gets tough because I don't think they really understand the advantages they have because they haven't possibly experienced things that we had to experience as children.
I definitely agree. And I mean, that's on all levels. And I don't necessarily know that I want, my children to experience anything that I did, but it's more of understanding that no matter what the situation is, you can overcome things, right? And right. You should shoot for the stars no matter what. Because we always want them to have better, even when you had a good life. And I think I had a good life regardless to some of the struggles and adversity, but because I think those things make us great. And I think we live in a space sometimes where this world wants to try and hinder you from everything. Parenting now is more of trying to put a red tape around everything and not let your kid fall and not let them hurt. No, they need to feel everything. And especially our children, because our children are African American. There isn't a lot of caring done for them outside of our homes. So you must let them experience things and keep it real with them, as I say, and you'll know at what age you should do that. Everyone should know their child. So sometimes you have a younger kid. My daughter can take a lot of real conversations at 9 years old. I can talk to her in a way to make her understand some of the things she goes through with her friends and let her know you don't have to be like them or do what they do to be their friend. And the moment you feel like you don't want to be a part of that friend group, okay, right? Because I want her to make her choices, but I want her to have an understanding of why she's making that choice and know that she doesn't need their support or approval to make her choice, as long as she's comfortable. And I think the more we have these conversations, the more we understand, the more we pull from what we loved in our childhood and what we didn't like, and try to adjust the lens so they can become better, the more effective, the more vocal, the more loving, right? The more honest they'll be. What were you want to say, Robert? What are you doing to either, like you say, bring in what your father gave or change it up a little bit to make it even better?
So with that, it's kind of funny here because, as I stated, we grew up poor. And we didn't have a lot, but eventually we were blessed to come out of that slump. So, from that standpoint, it's like, okay, I never want my child to experience what I experienced from the needing and the wanting, because there were nights and days that we went without eating food and, electricity and things of that matter. So you never want your child to experience that. When we had our son, of course, one and only son, spoiled and rotten. So this is a double-edged sword, if you will, to a point where there's a balance. And I had to learn that the hard way. Although we want the best for our children, but we also have to take what we learned from our childhood and do it in moderation to a point to where we're not overkilling the spoiling, and just gonna call it what it is, spoil and rotten, to a point to whereas he didn't have to want for anything, because going back from the past, you didn't want him to experience it without food or what things in that manner. So, but it gets to a point to whereas, okay, now it's a bit much, and at the same time, I'm instilling work habits within him, and you've got to look at everything that these children are dealing with in this day and age. From the culture, the environment, and their social gatherings, to a point to whereas a lot of things that they are experiencing and were involved in, it came to a point to whereas, mom and dad has this, I know I've got this, I know I'm going to get this, so I really may not have to do this because all I have to do is ask mom and dad for this. So do I really need or have to work? Although we've instilled that work ethic in them, it's just the mindset that these particular children are experiencing at this day and age. But you have to kind of draw them back in to a point to say, hey, look, let me take you back for a minute to show you exactly what we had experienced. As far as just putting it out there, we had the dumpster dive to eat it some nights. So when you actually put it out there raw on the table and say, look, this is what we had to do. This is why I work so hard so that you won't have to experience this. And I don't want you to take it for granted, nor develop a manipulation towards mom and dad to a point where I'm just going to get and take and not work, so that you will have these work skills so that you can survive. Because one of the things that we always want to instill in our children is, hey, I'm going to try my best to make sure that I provide you with everything that I know that I was able to obtain as far as work ethic from a spiritual platform, so that you can survive. Because hey, one day, not going to know when my time is up, but I want to prepare you so that you can be successful. So it's a balance of, okay, I know that's my only child. I know what I went through. Do I spoil them rotten, or reel it back and, have that balance to a point where they are able to identify, hey, I need to have a certain set of skills so that I can survive when the day comes, so that I can be successful in what it is that he wants to do.
I think you made a great point. And to me, to be honest, I don't know what Steph might want to add, but what I'll say is I think you do both. Again, that key word is balance, right? And for what works in your household with that child. Because when you have multiple children, you know that what works for one doesn't work for the other.
Exactly.
And I say that because if you're going to have balance and you knew where you came from. So of course you want to make sure that your children never go through that phase, right? Just like when I talk about the periods of like homelessness that we went through, I never want my kids to experience that. However, what I do want them to understand is the mindset of no matter what the situation is, you show up every day. So when I had to go to school at 14 years old and no one knew the things I was going through, especially none of the kids I went to school with who were in different economic situations, right? I performed because that was my job. I didn't have an actual job then, right? I was 14 years old. So school was my job. So I made sure I got A's, all A's. When I played on the field or on the court, I made sure I showed up each time because that was another job. And so why I say that is because I knew I didn't have a backup plan, right? This school thing has to work. And an easier way for me to get there is playing sports. Anything that was going to make my mom's job easier is what I did. And that is the lesson I'll teach my children now, right? Especially like my daughter. So when they bring the grades home and I'm telling her, hey, I don't want notes from your teacher. I need you to focus and pay attention because this is what matters. This is how you're going to complete 5th grade. This is how you don't get left behind. And those little concepts she's understanding. She can't understand if I tell her about homelessness right now, right? That'll be so far from her grasp. But I can tell her what it'd be like if all your friends pass and you're stuck behind, right? And so that the point is you find that balance, you find out how to talk to them through what you went through so that they understand, but not just giving them a life that you're running away from because they can never see that, right? Until it happens. And that may be a lesson that'll be at adulthood, right? Like your son's age now. But as a parent, when you're bringing them up, I think it's very, very crucial that we are self-conscious of our upbringing and identify the things that made us great, even the things that we didn't like. And I think a lot of times people try to shy away from those things, but they don't realize that it's the adversity, it's the obstacle, it's the struggle, it's that, oh, I didn't eat today that motivated you to get into the background you're in because why? IT is a very popular field. RNs are a popular field, right? Meaning you will always have job security in this world, period. And it will come at a certain dollar rate, correct? And you can take that as high as you want. You can go into self-practice. So there's a reason why you worked hard, but give them that so that they can understand. I worked hard despite of all of this. Because I wanted something better. I knew when I had the opportunity to be a dad or a mom, I wanted to be great, right? And those are the things you bring into them. Because when you just give them things, of course they appreciate it, but they don't really understand. They think it's just, I don't know, money printed on trees. Or everybody lives like this, mom, until you say, oh, no. Let me come show you the TV of real life. Or we can just drive down the street. Just so you can understand and appreciate. And the more you take, what I also find, I don't know if you do this with your kids yet, but even doing volunteering, right? When they have Thanksgiving or any other food give backs or books or whatever. I think doing things like that with children at any age and in all ages, even as adults still giving back, especially I know both of you are very much into your faith, so we know how big that is. I think instilling that as early as possible is another key element so they can understand what it's like to give, to see and know people that don't have as much, but they're still happy. They're still working hard because sometimes, again, society will play a role that if you don't have as much, you're not fulfilled. You're not as happy, right? And we can all speak to the fact that that wasn't true. I didn't know when I was coming up, we weren't rich or wealthy. Those weren't the conversations we had, but I know I had everything I wanted. I know I did fortunately eat every day. I know my lights were always on. I know I could do anything I wanted to do. And so you learn later as you get older, like, oh, we were always at Marshall's and the other stores, right? But it didn't matter because I was a kid getting new clothes. I was a kid getting new shoes. And I think the more, we look at those things, the better it will be, and not getting lost in what society says what our parenting should be, the vacations you should do twice a year, or you should travel here, you should buy them this, and they need that. I think the more we get away from that and really hone into what this particular child needs and what I can contribute from what I learned and what I'm going, I think the better they will be. What do you guys think on that?
I would definitely say it's the time spent with your children. Things are very nice, but to a point, they're going to remember the time you spent with them, the values that you taught them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to say with Robert, I know he has an only child. His son was the only child. With my daughter, because of their age gap, for many years, it was just her as well. So I definitely can attest to the struggle of finding balance, because when you're the grandchild in the family, she was for a long time actually as well, until my son came around and my brother-in-law started having kids. But she just got stuff like all the time. So for us, it was important to me at the time. We were living in Maryland, so outside of Baltimore, and my grandmother was there. So I definitely had her over there. My grandma would have her, she had a little miniature broom sweeping, helping her with the dishes, because I didn't want it to get to where she was just getting so much that she just thought that was going to be the norm in life. Like, you just don't get stuff without effort, like you guys were speaking on.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that. And I love that you highlight the moments. It is the moments. It is that quality time. We had a funny situation here in Georgia just a few years ago when it was like a power outage in Gwinnett County where I live. And we had it for like at least over 24 hours. And the most fun that they talk about is when the power was out, because we got all the blankets, went in the living room and had a movie night, right? Meanwhile, look, mom and dad are like, the power just come on immediately, right? Things to do, all of this. But the kids, that was some of the most fun they had, right? And that's why you say sometimes you got to just step back, because kids like time. They like playing. So now we incorporate that. Like, it's a movie night, usually once a week on a weekend. We get all the blankets, everybody's in the living room, and they enjoy that. They really do.
Exactly. To kind of piggyback off of what both of you were saying, core values and time are the most important things, because, as you stated, when I go back and look back at the childhood, it was the time that we spent with one another, with our siblings. Those moments to right now, to this very day, that we can sit and laugh and say, you remember this? And those were some of the most wonderful times. And with my son as well, when we would go on vacations and trips. And one of the main things that I observed is the car trips. We took a trip back then when we were living in Memphis. I'm in Nashville now. We drove from Memphis to Texas, and that's a long ride. So when you have those long car rides to a point where, hey, put the phone down, we're going to make up a song, make up game, whatever. This is the time where we get creative to a point to whereas I think our children really want us to be so transparent to a point to where it's okay. Not to say that mom and dad is really cool, but then I can really relate to them on a level to where, you know what, dad can be silly, mom can be silly. We can really have fun when we set aside time to have these different conversations or whatever. So those long drives really open up different doors and avenues to really understand what's going on in his mind, or what's going on in my mind or my wife's mind, and to a point to where we can sit and just have multiple conversations to where those are some memorable times to where the long drives to the point to where it kind of puts you in a box to force you to talk and communicate without the electronic devices, something that these devices have really taken over even adults. And just say the kids, even the adults now. I've seen adults walking and bumping into cars and things, but those really make a difference when you carve out the time to say, hey, let's do this, let's try this, let's be goofy, let's do something silly, let's do something stupid. And those are the memorable moments that they will always bring back and say, hey, Dad, you remember when we did this? And not only is it wonderful for him, but it's a great feeling for us as well. So family time and creating those moments are very, very valuable.
I do. I certainly agree 100%. So before we head out, I definitely want to ask each of you this, and especially because you all have older children than mine. So as we're all on this journey of parenting and not knowing the route, right? We're just doing the best we can with what we have and the resources that are around us. how often do you check in with your children and ask, you know what, do you like this? Or check your own parenting through them so you can hear that maybe they're not receptive to the screaming and the yelling. Maybe they want you to be like Robert's just saying, like transparent, right? They want to see fun and silly. They want to be want you to be relatable, because sometimes parents are just parents. And you don't realize sometimes your kids need a friend. Your kids want a role model. They want a lot of different things. Do you ever check in with them and just see where you're at on their scale?
I'll go. So definitely all the time, because you know, I'm in a phase now where my daughter's going to change so rapidly. So I have to check in. I'll say with her, I definitely, when we're having conversations about even the friends she's choosing to have in middle school, it's her first year of middle school. And for me, I feel like it was an odd time to enter middle school because we had this pandemic going on. So I can't really say, well, hey, ask your friends if we can go out and do this, that, and the other, because I don't know how their parents feel with, you know, COVID and everything. But definitely checking in often with her. We allow her to, you know, we encourage expressing your feelings. I'll give an example, like her dad has to stay on her about her room. That's one of his pet peeves, keep your room clean. And one time she actually wrote on a sticky note how she felt about that. And it was saying, well, if dad wouldn't stay on me so much, I would be motivated to actually go ahead and keep it clean. So definitely just having that communication open, like it's safe to express your feelings. We may not like what you have to say, but we do want to hear what you need to tell us. With my son, he's younger. Another thing we try to do, so my husband takes my daughter to school every day. I take my son to school every day. And I do that because my daughter's in dance. So all throughout the week, I'm with her a whole lot supporting that. And then he's home with my son. But those kind of flip-flop moments kind of allow each of us to tap into that other child as well. Even though it's like a car drive, which isn't too long, it gives us an opportunity to pray with them, you know, chit chat with them, just because we're so busy during the week. So definitely, I would say you have to check in often with your children. They are changing so rapidly, and it's a whole different world from when we were coming up. They're exposed to so much. So many different elements to consider.
Yes, I love that stuff. I love that. And I love the flip up, like you said. You got to have it, right? Those moments. And that car ride matters. A lot can happen in transition in that car ride, you know? So I love that. How about you, Robert?
So with that,
how often are you checking in?
Regular. It's to a point where it's, the older they get, you know, the more they kind of push away. Hey, I'm grown. I'm not a baby anymore. But let them know, hey, you'll always be our baby, but you still have to kind of respect that boundary as well. But it is I stay about 2 to 3 times out of the week to check in. One of the things that I had to do a self-check on is we had a deep conversation, and this when he was living with us. And I know we're running out of time, but it was to a point to where he was like, okay, Dad, I get what you're saying, but you don't have to use that tone of voice with me. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, some of the things that our parents did to us, and we kind of, relay it over to our children. And it was to a point to where it's like, you know what, let me stop and check myself on this, to a point to whereas I had to really sit down and look at myself in the mirror to a point where if I am communicating this way to someone forcefully, if you will, it's an automatic defense mechanism to where they're going to put their guard and their shield up, and they're not going to be receptive of anything that's heard. So I had to change my tone to a point to where, okay, let me talk to you on an informational level to where you will be receptive of whatever it is that we are going to convey over to you. And once I, did that change with him, we would begin to communicate more frequently, more often, and things change drastically and instantly. So we definitely have to take time out to say, okay, look, let me do a self-check. And that's one of the things that we really, if we want to be honest as parents, we really hate self-checking ourselves because we always want to be right. So, but we really have to take that time to do a self-check to a point where, am I saying this the wrong way? Can I present this or in a different, more tone? But our conversations are more frequently and they're more productive. So we really have to stop and just say, okay, look, let me stop and really listen to you, because as Stephanie was saying, things are changing, their environments and their surroundings and just things, period. So we have to stop and take a moment to actually listen and hear them to ask what's going on so that we can provide them with more relevant information from a parent slash cool mom or dad perspective.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree, because for me, you know, my kids are a lot smaller. So I can tell through emotion when they're not receiving something the way I want it to be received. A lot of times, like you all know, the coach Tajah, right? That doesn't work in parenting. They don't want to be coached. Parented is different, but still, if I get excited, meaning I'm getting angry or a voice gets loud, they don't really like that. You know, they're not responding the way I want them to respond. And I don't want them to be scared, but I want them to know that this is a serious moment. But I'm learning how to do that without raising my tone, right? So that they can properly hear me, not get a sense of I'm scared now and I don't know what it is I should be doing. And so I think the more we check in, and then also what I've realized is very important is when I catch myself in those moments with them, right? And they probably are deserving of those moments, right? But the other part of it is then going back after maybe like something has happened and giving them a hug, letting them know I love them and telling them why that took place, right? Change behavior so that they can understand why mommy or daddy said this and did that. And now you know that you have a responsibility as well, but now we're on the same page, we're on the same level, and now we move forward, right? They're not left just, oh, they yell, but I don't know why. Right. Oh, I'm in trouble, but I don't know why. And I think a lot of times as when we were growing up, we probably dealt with that way more because parents didn't explain. And I'm not saying they needed to, but I think as a child, it goes further for you in your life because now you're left with no more questions about what did I do wrong? What could I have changed? And I think that helps, especially in school, because I have, you know, my daughter asks questions until you feel like you're clear on why a teacher said this or did that, not in a defensive way, but so she understands because like I said, she operates on a different level. And so, I think a teacher should be able to identify that and understand that. And if there's a challenge, I'll let a teacher know, you're feel free to reach out to me. But yes, I do ask my daughter to be inquisitive. I do ask her to challenge what doesn't make sense because I do, right? And those are the things that I say we need to instill in our children. We need to see what worked for us. And especially with our children being African-American, they should question, they should feel confident, and they should also, you know, be called out when they are wrong, but then told what was that behavior? How can they fix it, right? And then sometimes it's just mommy was flat out wrong. I'm sorry. I thought you did this, or I thought it was you. And I think that's another big point about apologizing when you're wrong, not just thinking you're the end all be all. It makes kids feel good too, you know? And I just think the more that we work with them, and talk and, you know, communicate where it's not, I'm just the parent and I'm right. Because that's not always the case. And sometimes we don't know. And I think the more we listen to them, the more beneficial it will be. And at the end of the day, with all of us, no matter how many children you have, or you're just an only child, or you were an only child, or you had a great upbringing, a hard one, we're all in this parenting struggle, great journey together. And the more we have conversations like this, the more that we build resources around us, and we can tap into, oh, Robert, what did you do and it worked? Because your kid's older. Stephanie, how are you handling middle school, right? Because my kid isn't there yet. The more we open up these channels and be honest about things that affected us in a good or bad way, the more we can help each other. And more importantly, the more we can tap into our children to let them properly grow the way we want them to, because we always want them to be better. So if you ever need help with parenting, coaching, you know where to find me. And that's on my website. And this has been a great episode of Talk to Me Tuesday. Have a good night.